what's important in real estate is that continuous learning, adaptability, and coaching. I mean, I'll tell you right now, if I didn't do all that, and I don't know how many coaches and coaching platforms that I listen to or signed up for. Everybody has things they can offer, and they're all a little different, which is interesting. But don't reinvent the wheel completely, because there's so much expertise out there in this world that you can learn quicker and faster by hooking on to someone that's already done it.
Welcome back to the Reside Platform podcast. I'm your host, Nick McLean, co-founder of the Reside Platform and broker owner. And I'm here with Kara Hinshaw. She's the Teamerage owner. Notice I didn't say broker owner, I said Teamerage, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Key Associates Signature Realty. 6 agents 5 years ago, and now they have 60 agents doing 550 transactions a year, $120 million in volume in Santa Claus, Indiana. Kara, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's appropriate timing for the interview, isn't it?
It is appropriate.
Right at Christmas. Here we go.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Yes.
You know, Kara, we met recently, really, in the last year, because you hired the Reside Platform to help grow and scale your Teamerage into expansion markets. And if there's time, we'll talk about expansion markets. But I mean, it's a hot topic right now, this Teamerage. What is a Teamerage? We know what teams are, kind of, but they've evolved. And broker owners have gone independent. I would like to know your reasoning for going independent or staying independent. I also want to talk about how your business model works. How do you make money? Why do you personally still sell homes, and what the future looks like? So, Kara, how did it begin for you in real estate?
Well, first of all, I was born and raised in real estate. So I'm a real estate baby. My parents sold real estate, but I thought I would never do it. I thought, I grew up where there was a million phone messages at the phone because it was a landline. I was taking calls from my parents with the house showings. I was like, I am not going to be a part of this business ever in my life. And so I went off to Purdue University, graduated as an industrial engineer, and went into corporate for 10 years. So I was in global procurement, which honestly has helped me a lot in what I do today. People wouldn't think that, but I was global procurement. I managed global teams. I was a global negotiator. That's what I did. And I loved it, honestly. It was a great job.
What does that look like? Is this like buying supplies, inventory? Is this like...
Yeah, so basically what would happen is I would go in and negotiate the global contracts for the world of whatever these plants were buying on. I did it as well at what I call product, which is more electronics. I was buying I used to buy these things, all of these little connectors and all that. I would negotiate the prices for them. And then my last job was in GlaxoSmithKline. I managed all the travel. So all the hotels around the world they used, all the paths of the airlines they were using, I was negotiating them globally for those companies. And so I did a lot of travel globally, had teams globally that I had to, suppliers, vendors, just had to really put all that in place and get an order for the company to purchase. So there is a site purchasing, which is a lot different than this. They would work with us. We would negotiate the contracts and they would buy off of them.
Yeah. So let's remember to go back to, okay, so you grew up in a brokerage, and your parent owned the brokerage?
They did. Small town. If just Santa Claus, Indiana has 2,000 people.
Wow. So you kind of have a knowledge base that you just formed as an adolescent, as a kid. And so you went into procurement, and I'm really interested in that, because how did those skills translate to a real estate brokerage? A lot of them do, because you got to procure leads and watch those leads go down the funnel.
And relationship based, because you have your suppliers, your vendors, you're negotiating contracts, and even to the point of managing the brokerage. It actually helped me manage all the VAs today, because I was into the global world 20 years ago and managing people overseas all day long. And so my relationships, for me to start a VA team, which I'll get into, was nothing to me. Like, that was just old school corporate that I used to do.
Wow. So a lot of team success that I find, working with all these teams is how they structure their organization. And so let's get to that with your VA team. When did that come about? How does it work? How does it run? What do they do? A lot of people want to know about that because you just don't sell 550 homes and still have a life unless you have lots of great human resources.
Well, let's go back to why I started what I did. That's evolving. That's where I'm more today compared to where I was. So 5 years ago, so I sold real estate for 20 years. So I came back home. That's why I got into real estate. Had a baby, back to Indiana. I left North Carolina, which I loved. Loved my corporate life. I just couldn't find when I came back, I worked remote a year, which was very odd back then, 20 years ago. But I went as long as I could. I'm really close to my boss at the time, but I had to say goodbye to that world because they wouldn't let me stay remote in my house in Santa Claus, Indiana. So I thought, well, I'm not going to get the pay scale in Indiana that I was getting back there. And the jobs weren't here in Indiana at the time and what I was looking for. So I thought, well, why not try real estate? Here it is. My parents are doing it. I've never tried it. Both my brothers did it. Hated it. So I was the third one to try here of the family. So I got into it and really never looked back. But just to give the history is I sold homes only really and focused on homes. I mean, we've always had a few agents because of my parents. Some were from them, legacy. Some came on, but not very many. I wasn't recruiting. I wasn't trying. It was what I'd call almost a solo brokerage, you making money and you're as an independent. And did that for 15 years, to be honest with you. I bought the business 3 years after I started, which I started in 2005. Bought it in 2008, but did not try to grow or do anything beyond that until 2019. So I had the real estate skills down, from old school because back then it was a lot different than it is right now. We were using CRMs, but just even digital signatures. We didn't have any of that. You can't do the amount of business back then that you can now just by technology. So technology has definitely helped us ramp up how much you can do as well.
Yeah, for sure. So there's these mom and pop brokerages, and they really just formed just to operate their own production, right?
Correct.
I've seen
that's what I was.
Yeah, that's where you were. And they have a high level of service. They have very few clients because of the scale and size, but the clients they have are usually fairly loyal and use you generation after generation. Is that a true
Correct.
statement? Like you?
Yeah, correct. Especially in smaller towns, which you understand that.
Yeah, I understand.
You get into the bigger cities, it's not as much loyalty as some of the smaller towns. So
there's more competition. There's more skullduggery. There's more, let me try to get that client because that's the way it is. But yeah, small towns, sometimes it's like, oh, that's Kara's client. Kara sold the mom's house and the grandkids the house. And, and they stay pretty loyal because you're going to see them around town and wave. And it'll be, they want to avoid that awkward situation.
Yeah.
But so you decided to grow. What made you decide to grow? What was it? What inspired it?
I think you get to a point where, obviously you start off the business, money's what is everybody's focus, right? You want to make money. I did well for 15 years. Along the way, I invested as well. I'm a big, property buyer. I'm a holder. I don't flip. Started young because I'm in a real estate company. So like my first rental, I was 21. I was young. So I started really young and it got to the point, I grew that portfolio along with the success of me selling real estate for 15 years. There's a point of what is it, what makes you get up in the morning and get excited. And I love to sell, don't get me wrong, but I think I was at that next step. I came from corporate managing billions and then I went to small town, cried, selling real estate for 100,000 and I lost my identity. And then I got back into my world where I was very successful as an agent. And then I decided it was just time to that next step. It was, I was always a go-getter. I was always a what's next. Never thought I'd even be back in my small town that I grew up in. So I thought that was my way really to give back to the agents and especially the industry. There's a lot more newer agents, young agents in the industry. My 15 years, you didn't see a lot of 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds. They were all 50, 45, 50, 60. So a lot of, me giving back is bringing on those younger people and getting them in this industry because it's a great industry and giving them success and also being allowed to do very well in a small town. There's not a lot of opportunities in a small town. Real estate, that's an opportunity. So if I can bring in these people, even to the bigger cities where I'm at, it's still not huge compared to corporate, big Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Nashville. They're small. They're 100,000 people. So it just allows me to give back to the community, help coach agents up. And I guess it also looked at me as my retirement plan. When I started, I was 45, starting to grow it. I'm almost 50. 55 has been my goal. Like at that point, do I want to sell, which I choose still to sell because I love it. But at 55, what will that look like? What team am I going to have around me? What can I do? How much flexibility can I have? So it really became retirement planning to some extent and just my ambitions of giving back.
Yeah, that's a good reason to do it. And, I remember my mentors in similar story, 2007, 8, 9, 10. These were 60, 50, 60, 70, 80-year-old realtors that gave me the old school tried and true practices of real estate. And yeah, it was an aging industry. It really was. And then when technology hit, we started attracting more and more newer agents in the technology world. And it's like, okay, wait a second. I all of a sudden became the person that I can give back to. I wanted to give back in the hero's journey. So how did you decide? Did you decide to do a Teamerage in 2019? What is your business model and how did you arrive at it?
So I think when I started, think about it, 6-7 years ago is when a lot of the teams really started. When you really started seeing a lot of them. I'm sure it was a lagging for me because I'm in a smaller area. Phoenix and all them probably had it a lot sooner, but I started seeing a lot more teams. And so I went down that path. I had a buyer agent in my small brokerage of 6, and I didn't see it go very well. When you have 6 agents and you have one dedicated to you, it just doesn't work well. Just the fairness and just how you support everybody. I didn't like how that was feeling. So I decided to, if I'm going to grow this, I'm going to grow it as a brokerage, but as a team environment, so that everybody gets the same equal, share of what support we're going to give. If that's leads, if that's transaction coordinators, if that's marketing, whatever, I basically looked at it as what did I need in those 15 years to grow what I did? And how do I implement that to support these agents that I bring on, new or if they even switch to us? So my model has really been about what did I need? What did I learn? What can I give? And then really, and I guess also the Teamerage is you have the newer agents that need a lot of help, but you got existing agents, or even if they grow to those really productive agents, how do you support them all? And so, when you're competing against cloud-based EXPs, Keller Williams, all those people, not Keller's not cloud, but just those models, how do I give it all to everyone as much as I can with different, levels within our brokerage? So that's where the team is. You may be very teamish right when you start off because you get everything. You may get to the point you're more a team within me and you don't need my support so much anymore, but I helped you get there, or I give you the support you need, or you can pick and choose. But you still get the levels of support, but also, obviously as anything goes, compensation, as they get more, people are going to look at that. So.
Yeah, I think a mistake a lot of teams make when they're forming their team is they start with their splits. So they go, okay, I don't have a lot of resources. I don't have a lot of support. I don't have a lot to offer. So let me start with a very lucrative split or not advantageous to the team or the Teamerage. And if you take the mindset of what does that support look like? What are the values resources I want to have available? What's the cost of those things? And how do I get those costs? How do I generate that revenue? You said you identified what you needed in 15 years. What did you identify you needed as an agent that now your Teamerage benefits from?
So 5 years, or maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I don't even know exactly when it is, that's when I started getting into coaching. I didn't coach before that. It was my coach was my mom and dad, to be honest with you. And that was learning real estate. I think I got into coaching is like, what's next out there? I saw the changes happening in the industry. John Sheplack and Joshua Smith were my 2 6 or 7 years ago. two good, really good, solid foundations. And it really came down to, I was growing a Teamerage from a small town. And our MLS is like 10 counties. And the biggest town is an hour away. That's about 250,000 maybe. Above us, maybe 80. But either way, there's a lot of territory. And here I'm in the small town 2000. So I really nailed down working on systems before I tried to grow. I knew that I had the knowledge to grow. I knew what I was doing. I just didn't have any systems in place, especially if all these people were going to be remote, because to some extent, some people are 2 hours away from each other in our team, our group. So systems was a really big thing. And that's from how do I pay? Just everything. Like, how are we going to do this? How do we train them? How do we bring them on? How do we onboard them? Everything had to be systematized. And back then, I look back then and it's terrible compared to what it is now. I've really evolved in systems. But being that engineer background, the systems wasn't a big deal to me. It took me a year to figure out what I was going to do. Like, how am I going to operate this? Before I just jumped in. I know some people jump in, and I do that a lot. Don't get me wrong. I'll adapt quickly and turn the ship. But I didn't feel comfortable just then. I really worked on systems for a whole year.
What would be the first system you develop as starting over or coaching someone to build a team?
Well, first of all, it was simple as how am I going to pay these people? Like, just like I had to get the HR down. I had to get, how are we going to, at the time, how are we going to even do the digital signatures? How are we filing? We're not using paper files anymore. We can't do this. It's that crazy. It's like, just how do I get everything online to cloud-based, I guess, at that point, 7 years ago. This is probably 6 years ago when I started, before I even tried to evolve it with agents. You're talking, how do I pay them? How do I digital signatures? How was I filing them? You have to remember, this is way back. Next thing, how am I going to train them? When I bring them on, what am I doing with these people? How do I support them in marketing? Putting all those systems in place, where our marketing is very much evolved more now than back then. And how all systemized that is. But just all that, TCs, what's the system around the transaction coordinator, the listing coordinator, how are we going to operate them? I've learned a lot about staffing along the way. I've failed miserably at the beginning. Not that they're wrong people or bad people, just I didn't know what I was looking for, what I needed, who needed to be around me. I've learned a lot about staffing and how important staffing is around you when you are starting to grow. And that's a big lesson learned right there, is creating the systems to put the right people around you to help create the systems, but also operate them.
That's so
huge.
Good. Huge. Okay, I want to get into staffing, but before we do that, let's recap this. This is really, really important.
Okay.
Because I don't want people to listen to this and go, well, I'm at a cloud base. I don't have to worry about that. They do it for me.
That's correct.
Okay. Really, you should understand it and take control of that, because as the team leader, your agents are going to look to you to fix it.
Yeah.
Right. Number one, they want to get paid on time and accurately.
Yeah.
You need a system around that.
And I've evolved even from that, like 5 days to 1 day filing.
1 day filing. Like,
they won't pay fast.
I was just talking to my executive assistant last night on standards around paying the agents. And so even if I was at EXP, LPT, you name it, XYZ, as a team leader, I'm going to have a staff member, transaction coordinator, coordinating with the corporate on deliverability and accuracy, because I'm sure there's not perfect all the time. Right. And so I want to have control of that, because as a leader, like, leaders eat last, but also you want to be the one that is perceived as the one paying them, because there's power and influence over the ones being paid. So think about it. Who's really the leader if they're getting paid by someone else?
Correct.
So that's one. Now, so that's first. Number two, training and onboarding your agents.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because a lot of them, especially the cloud-based, if you have a team, they have training, but it's not your training. Like, you have a team or brokerage or whatever you're doing, you have your way of how you're going to do things. You have CRMs, you have systems, you have role playing, you have scripts. It's how you're going to do business as your company. So I think that doesn't really matter what your brokerage is doing as much as how you want to guide people.
Yeah, I would love to learn more about your onboarding and training, but training, this is so similar to how I thought about this stuff. So I went into training because I was a commercial airline pilot. You were in manufacturing,
Yeah.
logistics, procurement. Okay, so we started at the end and then we go back to the beginning, and then now we're within the process, transaction coordination management and listing coordination and management.
Yes.
And in order to drive that, in order to get those two things, you got to market and advertise.
Correct. Now that's
Right.
where we evolved as we're really evolving now. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's always evolving. Right. And so as a team leader, you're the number one marketer. Are you still the number one marketer, advertiser, face, voice?
As the brokerage?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but what's really been interesting is I was on video a long time ago. Video has always been my thing, and I'm not scared to be out there. I don't care what people think.
That's big.
Yeah, that's big. You just got to get over it. But there is agents that were under me, like I call more of my originals, and even as I evolved, that just were scared to death of video or didn't like it or thought it was not relevant. But now, as I've been doing it for 5 years, and I love seeing them all get into it and excited about it and understand how important it is. And so I think it's important that as a leader, what is your core values? And, me, obviously, video is always, our marketing has always been a big portion of what our company's been about. And as much as I include the agents, I do, but, I love when I see them do it on their own as well.
Yeah, you guys got to follow Kara and her social and her videos. So how often videos evolved.
Videos, I used to do it all and edit it myself. I don't do any of that now. But
yeah, your
they got AI tools for that.
Your VA does that, and some third-party companies. So how often do you do videos? How often are you posting? Is it just organic, like kind of John Sheplack and us?
It's a little bit of everything. I mean, it just depends on how busy I am, to be honest with you. I'm not, I'd love to be as good as John, but no, I'm not anywhere near John. But in regards to videos, I do have a dedicated person that manages all my social media. So it makes it easier to make sure that I get enough out all the time. But, it's us working together, whatever I need to get to them to make sure that I have out there. But I also have a marketing platform that I hire as well to help just with understanding exactly different angles, different mixes in that as well. So it's a combination. But as the company, not just me, I mean, I give tons of support. They have custom marketing graphics that we'll do. They have video that they can be edited, or they can shoot and edit from us. And it's all the marketing itself, like the just solds and all that. That's all automatic. It just plops in a file form. They don't even have to ask us for it. It's just that natural down the how we set up all the systems around the transaction coordinator marketing. They're all tied together. We use ClickUp is pretty much what it is, and it starts with the transaction, and marketing is all a part of it. So our agents don't have to do anything to notify us. It's just dumped in a file when everything happens.
Yeah, you got to take control of that with the agents. Is like, you can ask them to do all these things, but at the same time, the company needs to take control and deliver it.
Yeah. Now, if they want custom stuff, we will charge them for that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's there. The availability is there for them to have custom stuff. It's just at that point we start charging.
I was talking to this was years ago, one of the top teams in the Wall Street Journal's top 250 teams. I think they were in the top 50 at the time, back before they did small, medium, large. It was just who are the top 250 teams in the nation, and they told me, they were like, I don't consider myself a real estate company. I consider myself a marketing agency. You hire me, Mr. and Mrs. So you're hiring me because you hire me because I'm a marketing agency. I'm going to market it. And then he took that same idea and he's marketing his agents, marketing their social brand. So isn't that true? Like at some level, we're a marketing agency.
We are, and it's even it's evolved for me as an agent now to the company. I mean, honestly, the agents that attract to us, it's because probably that marketing, and it's the agents we want. Like they feel us, they know us by watching us. And those that usually say, hey, I knock on the door and want to potentially come over, they're a fit. And, that helps weed out even learning because I feel like the attraction's there for the people that we want. So, but yeah, the marketing, that definitely helped me evolve to where I have today. I mean, if you think about the agent count, I think we're at 65 agents. we're at a market of 1,000 agents, guys. You let's go back. Like, you can't compare me to a Phoenix who has 20,000 agents. Like, it doesn't sound like a lot of agents, but that's like 6.5% of my market. I mean, there's other bigger fish, don't get me wrong. And, I'd love to be, somewhere someday. I don't know what my goal is or where I want to finish, but that's not a lot to be selecting. So there is a lot of newbies, I would call it, that we bring on, because I'm not sitting there, tapping on every body that I do business with every day to come over. I mean, hopefully that if they want to come over, they like us, they see us, they're attracted to us. So, it's just a little different when you put it in that.
It's so incredible. I mean, 65 agents out of 1,000 is absolutely incredible, and you're growing. I think we talked a couple of weeks ago. It was at 60. Now you're at 65. So it's like, and you're inspiring people to get into the industry, which is super important for everyone to listen. You need to be inspiring, motivating people to get in the industry. If you see talent, you need to tell them. Especially in these local small marketplaces. If imagine you saw Kara and you've seen Kara and she's seen her success and she's on video, she's selling a lot of homes, and she sees you and sees something in you and says, "Have you ever thought about being in real estate?" And they're probably like, "Yeah, I have." "Oh, well, I have a plan for you.
Yeah.
I have a training plan. I have a marketing plan. You just need to get your all you got to do is get your license.
Yeah.
Plug in.
Your license and plug in."
And what I often tell people too is, when I'm talking to a new agent, is you need to invest in yourself. So get your license, invest in yourself, and then let's talk. But I want to go back to the staffing. So let's build a team. Staffing. What staff is required to build a team, Rich?
So, I guess everybody's different, and I put a lot of importance in, there is a point that when you're growing, you have to put some of your money into the business, obviously, to get to a certain point, because there's the messy middle. I think everybody knows there's the messy middle. Like, you do really well when you're small, and you do really well when you get more agents. And the messy middle is when it costs you some to really get to where you're going. And I'm getting out of that, but there was a bad messy middle, and it was because you needed support, or at least I did, especially because of what my expertise is versus others, that I had to staff up, and especially for what I wanted to give. So I guess it depends on what you want to give. But so my staffing is, I have a huge marketing team. That's my choice. Not everybody would do that. But that's the core of what I'm all about. And so there is a big marketing group around us and to support agents. And then because I'm a brokerage, obviously you have to worry about the payroll, the HR, a little bit of all that has to go in there. Then it's a lot of the training, and then the TCs, listing coordinators. So like from a staffing perspective, I have more VAs than I do, I would say, people that are sitting right next to me here in the US. So, and a lot of that choice was, I think I did it like 2 or 3 years ago, maybe. And I failed miserably. We started 3 years ago, the VA route, failed miserably. It did not work. We had to wrap our heads, start over 3 times. I'm like, I know this can work. I've done it before. We really had to get systematized. And that's the key when you go to the VAs, I feel like, is you got to know what you want them to do. There has to be a system around them, accountability around them, even to the point of being able to reach them, knowing what they're doing. And then about 2 years, it clicked. So now there's 12 VAs supporting our group. And that's from marketing, transaction coordinator, listing coordinator, ISAs, helping us with recruiting, just the database. They're doing a lot, and they're wonderful. Like, I actually plan to visit all of them hopefully this year.
So is there a manager that oversees all of the VAs, or are they in silos, or combination, like assistants to people onshore?
They're all more assistants to people onshore in sections. So marketing, it reports up through marketing. Now we do a biweekly call, me and my director of ops, with all of them. So we're very involved with them from that perspective. But I would say different sections have different people that they're working closer to in the US for sure. But I would say there are some, head people that are helping train and all that, especially in the transaction coordinator, listing coordinator area. We do have some leads over there from that perspective. Like, they train everybody up and everything.
What project management software or tools are you using to help manage with the VAs?
ClickUp's everything.
ClickUp. Okay. You mentioned that already.
We designed a whole system around from start to finish. ClickUp. We used to use Trello. It failed on us as we grew. Everything's, you start something, you have to tear it apart and burn it down and start over. So about a year ago, I finally got to the point, like, we got to do something to automate better. And we hired out to help design our ClickUp system. And so it's to the point of auditing, paying, marketing, TCs, listing, everything is in the system.
Yeah, that's all project management, workflows, checklists, automations. And I think it's fundamental when you have these offshore people, whether it's Dominican Republic, Philippines, Mexico now, Guatemala, South America is really huge now. Working with Sunita at Reside, like, he's like you, he's had 12, 20 VAs, and he uses Monday. He loves Monday. But so it's same thing. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is you got to build it out, right? Like, and you got to meet with your VAs. You got to manage them. How do they log on? How are they available? That's always the thing that I've seen people fall in. It's like they're sleeping. They're sleeping in the Philippines. You can't get a hold of them when you need them.
So we used to do it. I know if you go to a lot of the VA companies, they'll have the monitoring system on, like, to make sure they're working, and you can pop in and look at them anytime. We don't do that anymore, to be honest. We started with that. We trust our VAs. The way we do it is we have a marketing war room and we have a listing TC coordinating war room. So every day they're required to log in on a Google Meet, and everybody sits there like they're in the office. And so if I pop in and they're not there, and we all pop in, like, all the agents can pop in. Everybody knows these Google Meets. They're on their calendars daily, so that if they need to jump in the war room and ask a question, they pop in and they get them all in the different sections. I mean, we don't have marketing with, the listing coordinators or the transaction coordinators, but the sections all sit together. So marketing sits together and the listing transaction coordinators sit together. And they even sit together with our US base. So, it's not like it's just them, it's everybody. It's really the online office to some extent. And that is what it is. And so that's our way of really communicating. I mean, they can all text, they can, we have all that set up. But if you need an instant answer and you want to make sure you can talk quickly, just jump in the war room, Google Meet, and talk. And it works really well, honestly. So
it does.
Simple. So simple.
It's simple, but it's worth highlighting. Like, yeah. Okay, you have a Google Meet. Is that Google Meet must be a dedicated email, right? Like marketing at,
Yeah, I think it's like Hinshaw. I think it's like an info@keyassociates.com connected to that Gmail, because we use Gmail. So yeah, it's
and then it's free. You're already paying for it.
It's free. It's not, it doesn't matter.
It's like walking into the office. All you got to do is any agent can just click the link and join and start talking to somebody. And if you need something, boom, you're on it. But yeah, they log in, log out. And we
actually have some of the VAs on different office hours, so that like, let's say some work earlier, some work later. If like, let's say you have a transaction coordinator that's not on yet, the other transaction coordinators have access and can help. So it's not. We do have dedicated transaction coordinators to people, but everybody's out there willing to help if they need to.
And it's brilliant. It's brilliant and it's scalable, and you can add virtual assistants around the world based on the talent you could find, right? Because it's a virtual room. And so and you can onboard them, they can train them, they can cross-train and overhear other things departmentally. So it's a beautiful thing. I know at Reside we have a lot of VAs too in our financial department. I mean, we have like 5 QuickBooks certified bookkeepers to help run all the books. We have marketing teams. I mean, it's the same thing, right? And so as you scale, you figure those things out. So back to the Teamerage. I mean, how did you grow? I mean, you decided to grow 6 to 65. That's crazy. How did you do it? I mean, and is the Teamerage the model of the future?
I guess it just depends on who you are and what you're after. I mean, there's different goals around all the models, to be honest with you. is it time? Is it money? Is it niche? Or, there's so much, you can do so much around all these teams depending on how you structure them. Like I said, once I got the systems in, I did start the recruiting process, which is, what I learned a lot from John. Um, and it was hard for me, to be honest with you. That's probably one of the biggest challenges I had, because I was a small brokerage in a small town trying to go into a big town and start evolving agents to join me. And they're like, who are you? And why would I work on a Santa Claus? So I had to evolve from changing my name, because my name was Key Associates of Santa Claus, to Signature Realty. So we're 4 offices now. So we aren't identifiable by a town. Back in the day, it was always, that in your town. That's not what we were anymore. So, it even got to the point I had to evolve with logos and websites and just changing the name and feel of who we were. And then from there, really going into the towns, and I'm like, how do I get these people to join me? And honestly, I had to start selling in a market that I didn't have any desire to go sell in, just to be seen, I guess, is what happened, and people to get to know me. And once I started that, I started getting people to join. Then they saw what I had to offer, and it was a no-brainer. And then, it kind of feeds from there. You bring the right people on, and other people see, and then the marketing, and I'm still tapping. Don't worry, the calls are there. But in the meantime, we were doing a lot of newbie recruiting too, which I think, I don't know how much locally my competition is after the new people as much as we are. We have dedicated systems around finding new people from everything. And it's all very systematic and automatic, and they're getting hit by us left and right, those new people. So it's been a combination of probably 50% new and 50% people that just started to come on board and follow us.
Yeah, I always thought, you need a feeder system and a developmental process. I was like looking at, Moneyball, the movie, and there was a book, I think Michael Lewis wrote Moneyball about the athletic A's. And then I think Brad Pitt played Billy Bean, which is great.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't seen that movie. And it's like, how does the athletic A's compete against the Yankees? And I was the same thing in Wenatchee. It was like, there's like brokerages that are dominating, and they have dominant agents, like dominant, well-known.
I'm in that world. I have people that are, 2 very dominant and 1,000 agents plus. Been in the business a long time. So
with relationships with builders, and their husbands are builders, and they have, they get all the relocation business from the hospitals. It's like, okay, that's a tough one to crack. I got to develop these people. They're like the Yankees and the Red Sox. So I got to start finding new talent and bringing them in, and then beat them in the development game, because they got a little lazy. They're not in the development game. They're developed.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've done the same thing.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. I'm not saying they're not developing still, but I'm sure I'm a lot more aggressive on bringing new people on than they all are, just because we have different goals.
But here's what I've heard from people. Nick, I don't know if you heard this. You're training your competition. Did you ever fear that you're training up people that are just going to leave you?
Well, there are people going to leave you, and that's the nature of the beast of this business. And you just have to bring more people into. It sounds terrible, but you have to keep bringing people in for that reason. And it could also be people that just, they retire, or they have a family issue. People are going to go up and down in this industry, and or exit it. You just don't know. And they can have a great year, 2 years before that, and then they're gone in 3. You don't know what the future lies for agents, with you or without you, and where they go. And, honestly, if they leave me, I hope, I don't have bad relationships with anybody that leaves me. You never know if they will come back. And, I get it, especially people think things are greener on the other side when they haven't seen it. And so that's probably the hardest part about bringing people on the first person, because then they start wondering, is things greener on the other side? And you might lose them for that reason alone, because people talk and they give a lot of things about why join me, I'm great, and then they get over there and like, what the heck is this? And, so they may call you back, and that's fine. So.
Yeah, they do. They do come back. And sometimes I think team leaders are scared that people are going to leave them. And maybe because they're fearful that they aren't better than the other teams or brokerages. And that was kind of my thing was too. It's like I was hoping I was better, and I don't want them to fail. Like I don't like if you leave me, I don't want you to fail.
You want them to be successful. If they leave you, you still want them to be successful. I mean,
Yeah. So then I took the mindset of like, if they are going to leave, which they are eventually, so maybe in town or out of the industry, will they take some talent, some skills, some knowledge that will help them in their life? And for me, that's a job well done. That was my purpose in life because like you went from corporate America and were able to translate those skills and knowledge and experiences into a successful career. How awesome is that you could probably train someone on sales and process and systems. And if they move to North Carolina and get a job at wherever, they can apply it.
Yeah. I love seeing it. There's nothing better than actually seeing someone succeed in the industry, to be honest with you. You're like, I helped that. Look at that. It gives you, it's excitement. And like I said, if you don't keep them, it hurts. It always hurts. But, like I said, I've learned it's just like anything when you're in real estate, you lose them to someone else. It's the same thing. You just learn how to roll with it, I guess, and move on. But, honestly, our retention has been very good though. I think over the 5 years, I don't think we've lost more than 15 people. And some of that's just going in referral or leaving the area. There's a few that went to others, but not a lot.
That's fantastic retention. And what you got to look is that through line, net over net gain. You're obviously gaining and growing.
Yeah.
So let's kind of wrap this up in terms of leads. How does a Teamerage handle leads?
So that's probably my biggest challenge and what I need to work on the most.
Everyone has.
We all have something we're not great at. And this is the one area that I probably need to improve on. So we do give leads. We basically operate it. It's not really, they can opt in to take leads, and there's different rules around taking leads. Where we fault, and our goal all along when we started giving leads was, I want to give leads to get people trained, used to it, comfortable, enough that we can get them to fly on their own and get out of the nest. Mm-hmm. My goal was not to feed people leads all the time. Like that is not our goal. Whereas some teams, that is a goal in a team environment. Our goal is to use it to train, to get them going. Maybe during the ups and downs, we help, supplement. So, we're learning along that path, and, who's eligible, who's not eligible. Back in the day, we let everybody do it. Maybe not the case now, especially as we're growing, we have more people. But really managing the leads and the accountability around the leads is probably where we failed, if you ask me. If I go back and look at all the money I've spent on what I've delivered on leads to these agents, I probably haven't made the money I should have made on it. And I'm sure we've all learned this lesson, right? And part of the problem there is probably because I wasn't a hardcore team leader. That wasn't my focus. My focus was around how do I, support these agents and get them growing. It wasn't about, how much money can I make on these leads? That was never my focus. My focus was always, how do I use the leads to get them going? And
you said something that was very, very brilliant. And I think you probably did make money on your leads because you've used leads as a way for them to train.
Correct.
So it's not just closing the commit. If you look at the ROI, okay, they've made a sale, made the company fork.
Long-term ROI has been there because then they start doing it on their own, and that's less money out of my pocket to feed.
And it tied into your retention because there is a correlation between, did you make a sale in your first 90 days? Did you make a sale in your first 180? Because if you take a new agent, if they don't make money for 180 days, I'm sorry, you're not keeping them.
Honestly, those 15, I would say 10 of them are, they didn't make the effort, or, they went in a referral, or they don't like it. You know how that goes. Not everybody's going to love the world of real estate. So,
so a lead is a way to allow that agent to make some money and survive. Correct. So you can continue to develop them.
Correct. Because otherwise they are going to be out and you're wasting all your money there just trying to get them going.
Because then you're looking at the lifetime value of your team member.
Correct.
or agent at your brokerage, and you have some people that are going on that have probably made you $10, $20, $30,000 a year for year after year after year. Now on the lead side, it's interesting as Teamerage is, as I'm talking to broker owners are creating lead teams or teams within the brokerage, because when you deliver a lead, there's better margins.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
so you don't have to state what it is, but is there a different
spread? It's different. If you take leads, it's different. Mm-hmm.
It has Correct. To. So they have to opt into that agreement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If they don't want that, they don't have to do it.
So you don't force, this is the mistake people made. And I heard you say that you used to give it to everybody and force it upon everybody.
No, I didn't force it. I just let everybody take them. Now as people grow, there is a point you got to cut them off. Like
get them to the people that want them.
We need to get to the people to grow. That's where I'm going. When you have someone doing nothing and someone doing 7 million, you need to give to the one doing nothing. That's more where I'm learning. Not that we'll ever take it away from existing people, but as new people come in, grandfather, move on. That's adaptability. You got to do that a lot as this industry maneuvers and changes.
Do you have someone looking at the database, these leads?
Yeah, we do. We have one ISA that really, we call it more client care now. We used to do it more. We've done so many different ways with these leads, guys. I mean, I'm sure everybody's like me, you just change it up every year trying to figure out what makes sense. But we've gone to more the pool and letting everything just go in there except Zillow, because Zillow calls you. Can't do it there, but
you got to answer them.
But the rest all go into a pool of people. We let all the newbies go in and call away, so the aggressive new people are going to get it all. And like the other day, I was even showing a house and they were calling one of my people I was showing. I said, I love that.
Yeah, right.
Doing their job.
I absolutely love that. So they were calling somebody you were showing for.
Yeah, it was one of my people. And they're like, who is this person? They called me today and they were in the pond. So,
that's an important thing that I think some team leaders make a mistake on. They develop systems on lead rotations and lead assignments so that the client doesn't, the wires don't get crossed. People don't step on each other's toes. They're so worried about having a conflict over whose client it is, a lead conflict, that they create these systems that ruin their conversion rates. Like, I want the client to get a call from 4 different people.
Yeah. Oh, I was happy. I giggled when he told me that. I said, oh, that's great. I love that.
Yeah. I've had complaints where the person calls me and goes, Nick, I got to let you know as an owner, I signed up on your website and 4 different people have called me. I am so upset. I'm like, I'm thinking in the back of my head, that's awesome, because most teams don't call the leads. And I got like too many calls. Great. And so I'm so sorry about that. We just have standards to call, and I'm going to look into it. And when you work for us or when you hire us, you can expect the same level of proactive approach in selling your home or finding you the best deal. And then they go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Okay. I feel better now.
Yeah. So we're maneuvering right now. We're like, now it's more, our ISA is more client care. And watching the database on what everybody's doing, or if they're not in there, then we'll know that too. So like I said, I'm not saying we got that nailed down at all. We're learning and evolving there every
I love it. I love, see, this is what I love. And we can end on this this is a common trait for a high achiever, and like Kara's high achieving, right? She sells 550 homes a year. Right. She's growing 65 agents, and she's like, oh, we got a lot of room to grow. Like, yeah, so humble. But I know there's a fire in your belly. I know you're tenacious. Yeah. And I know you're type A, but you have to have this, like, do you find fault in what you're doing? You find mistakes, and so you can improve them?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know I'm not perfect for sure. And honestly, part of what's important in real estate is that continuous learning, adaptability, and coaching. I mean, I'll tell you right now, if I didn't probably do all that, and I don't know how many coaches and coaching platforms I listened to or signed up for, or, everybody has things they can offer, and they're all a little different, which is interesting. Just everybody has a different expertise and what they can teach you, but don't reinvent the wheel completely, because there's so much expertise out there in this world that you can learn quicker and faster by hooking on to someone that's already done it. So I definitely did that 5 years ago. Probably helped me for where I am today, to be honest with you. If I were to just did all this on my own, I'm sure I would have got there, but I don't know that I would have got as fast as I did, for sure. So.
Well, if you're around Indiana, if you're around Louisville, Kentucky, and you want to latch on to a leader, a mentor, someone that's going to develop you, you need to find Kara, number one. Number two, if you got referrals, definitely. And if you're a team leader, you need to follow her because she does amazing marketing. It's a pleasure working with you and your team. And thank you for being on the Reside platform. If you guys like this episode, share it, like it, comment. Download the other episodes. We got a lot more coming. And if you're looking to build a team, you build a brokerage, we're looking to help you grow. So look to theresideplatform.com to learn more information. Kara, thank you so much for being on the show.